Talk about what?
Partnership between you and me.
All right, so Godfather of Harlem season 4 episode 9. So Bumpy's dilemma of how in the last episode where Joe Colombo takes the nightclub from him, so he has to go over to the two bankers and talk to them about it. He like, well, listen, like y'all gotta give me an extension. He's like, you listen, I can show you my gangster ways and show you what happened to Archie, even though that whole ordeal was a different thing, right? And then that's when Mamie and Bump was talking for like a bit about, what will happen if like the house gets taken. But that's when he tells her like, hey, they was generous enough to give us an extension for a couple of months because Bumpy's gonna try to have this whole ordeal resolved like soon. And like the one thing I will say I liked about this episode was because you've had like Stella's dilemma also, because she wants to really be her own woman. She wants to do things, but the problem is Pino, he's like, well, I'm in charge and it's going to be my way and the Genevieve's way. There won't be any side acts or any side show. It's going to be my way, right? Because Bump talk like he sees Stella and he tell like have like a discussion with her because he's like, well, how we gonna handle this, because Joe is in the way. Joe is kind of like in the way right now and I need some stuff done. And that's when she's like, well, I don't know, because she's probably thinking about the idea of maybe marrying him, but then at the same time she doesn't, because she wants to like do her own thing. So he's trying to like come up with like some sort of idea at the time, but it didn't really work out. And then we had a returning Banano, because he returns and it was like, oh, he comes back because Bumpy's like, shit, I gotta get his help somehow. So that's when they had a talk and he was like, well, the five families fear you, but you, even though, yeah, like the whole he tried to take out everybody, but it's like they still fear him in a way because Banana was a big deal. So I like that they had that little discussion. He was like, fuck you, Bump. He said, listen, I was the one that saved you because you was trying to take out the whole family. So I was trying to save you. But he was explaining to him about the whole, Joe took Harlem from him. Like he took like Stephanie St. Clair, like he took the nightclub, like he took it, right? Well, not the nightclub, but he took the club from him, right? And that's when he was like, it goes against the sanction, because in the real life story to like Bumpy Johnson, it was more of, because there was this Dave Schwartz guy who was in, like, it was Dave Schwartz and Stephanie St. Clair when they had like that whole war back in the days. But then when Dave Schwartz done something to anger like the Italians, that's when it was a sanction on his death and then he got killed. But then once when Bumpy Johnson like officially took over, right? And then when Bumpy Johnson and Luciano went to prison and he done some protection for Luciano, that's when like the rest of the families, once when they found out about what Bumpy Johnson did, they was like, oh, okay, he done something for us type thing. So he can have Harlem, right? That shit is his. Like he can have Harlem. And it was a sanction for Bumpy Johnson to like have Harlem, because again, everything goes through Bumpy. Like any sort of business back in the days went through Bumpy, and if you was trying to do anything, it will always go through Bumpy. So I get what they was trying to do here with the whole, you're interfering with like Bumpy's business because Harlem is Bumpy's, right? So that's when he tries to talk to Banano, but Banano's like, I don't know. But they go over to like the five families and they have like the discussion, and then you have Pino, who's like, well, I speak for Chinchigante and the Genovese family. Like I don't care about any of this, because we also see later that Pino and Stella have a discussion. They talk, and that's when he was saying to her like, well, I heard that you and Joe going to be getting married soon, and y'all gonna like, I guess, merge the families together. And that's when she was like, oh, you talked to Joe, because Bumpy told her while they was at the diner, and he was like, you don't see it that Pino is moving against you. He's trying to take the family for himself. He's not listening to you. And that's the whole point of the story, is that nobody's listening to Stella. Even Joe Colombo told Stella, he like, listen, this is a man's world. Like you're not gonna be in you're not gonna be in control. Like I don't know what you're thinking. And it's like, ooh, I mean, decisions, right? So you had that, but then you had like towards the ending, before I even get towards the ending. So that Truman guy, when the way he was talking, I thought there was something wrong with him, But then when Mamie was like, oh, he was, I ignored it. But then when she said it, I was like, oh, oh. And then James Baldwin, I was like, oh. Like, I completely ignored it. And then that's when he was talking and he was like, oh. Because at the time, James Baldwin and Truman, they didn't like each other. Like they're the biggest writers, like from the black community and then from the white community. Like they're both big time writers. And that's when Mamie was trying to like have like more black people there. That's when you have like the white devils, the white sisters, and they like, nah, man, you can't be having more black people there. Like it's not supposed to be this way. And you know how it was back in the days. It was only like maybe one or two. There couldn't be more, right? So that's when she had to fight. Well, she had to talk to Truman to like get more like artists and more like black people there at this event that they was having. So that happened. But then we see him later talk to Mamie at the diner. He like, well, I want Bumpy there because I've done some research on you. Yeah, your name is Mamie Hatcher, but it's also Johnson. And I kind of wanted to see Bumpy there. He's like, you know what? He sound like that fucking dude from Lord of the Rings. That my precious. Like he sound like him the way he was talking just a little bit. I'm like, because I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I understand it's that month, but I completely avoided it. I'm sorry. I ignored it. I didn't know because the way I didn't know. So, you had that happen, right? And that's when we get to the ending part. Because oh my god, the ending part was good because you had Bumpy and Banano talk. And because Banano was saying about, all right, I give you permission to, whack a boss. And at the time, Bumpy was like, I'm not sure about this because he's like, if I whack a boss, don't you think that the other 5 families would sort of like, hey, you whacked the boss. You're not supposed to do that because it's supposed to be like a whole sanction thing. Like if everybody agrees to it, then it's like, okay, then we can do something about it. But if nobody agrees to it, it's like, you can't do this. So that's when he said, I need something from you. And he's like, listen, you called for me. I didn't look for you. You called for me. So that's when you seen Stella show up. And he's like, well, Stella would be like the witness, and just in case that he goes back on his word and be like, well, I never said that. Right. And it could be like, well, no, Stella was there. Right. And that's when Stella was like, yeah, because she doesn't want to marry Joe. But see, I don't know. It could be a swerve. We might get swerved in episode 10 and it could be like both Joe and Stella be like turning on Bumpy, be like, well, I never said that. I was never there for that. I don't know. They could do something like that depending on how they do things. But so far, Stella has been like really solid with Bumpy. Like, I don't really see her doing that. And plus, when Delia was saying, I never thought she would see like Bumpy and Stella together. But the thing is, Bumpy and Chin have like this rocky relationship, like this on and off type relationship where they frenemies, like basically frenemies, right? So, you had that. So I don't probably see Stella turning on Bumpy. I really don't. But you never know what could happen in episode 10, but I just don't see it. And that's when, you had that whole ordeal. And then that's when you had Pettigrew show up at the end. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what you doing? No, that don't look right. Now, another piece of the story that was interesting was like the Black Panther stuff with Elise, because Omar hears some conversation in prison about what happened to Malcolm and the people the person that fired the shot. And that's when he overheard some dude named Kareem Hassan. Well, he heard the name from a guy, and then that's when he tells Elise about it. He was like, well, if there's any chance, well, that chance got blown out. But he told her about it, and that's when she tells the Panthers, and then that's when they go look for this Kareem Hassan, and then go over to his house, found his wife. Then that's when Elise found, she remembered, I guess, like the spot that he was at, the place that he was at. So that's when they go over there, right? And that's when they find him. He gets worked on a little bit by Sadiq, and then that's when it was, some sort of white people. I mean, it seems like it's like a shadow government type thing, because when they set up the meet, showed up, shot this dude in the head, and drove off. So I'm like, Ooh, see, the plot thickens because when the actual death of Malcolm X, it was like a lot of speculations. It was like, hey man, it sounds like it was the government. It sounded like there was some other people. Because remember, back in the days, the 60s was wild. The 60s was fucking wild with like assassinations. This shit was wild. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, right? It was fucking wild back in the days. Sloppy as fuck, right? Very sloppy, but it was just wild back in the days. So it's like, you had that, and I'm like, I'm kind of curious because I'm like, I wonder how they're gonna do this because Omar told Elise, he's like, you gotta be careful about this because it seems like it's very powerful, like it's coming from the top, and you gotta be like really cautious about this. Now, it would be crazy if the next episode, okay, who heard about what, and then Omar's dead in prison. Because I don't think nothing's gonna happen to Elise, but it could be like, the dude that told Omar, well, when Omar forced the information out, he gets roped up, and then they murder Omar in prison, and then next thing you know, word gets out to Elise like, hey, Omar's dead. And like, what the fuck happened? Like, too many people know. So like I said, I don't think anything's gonna happen to Elise, but something could probably happen to Omar. Something could happen, right? I'm just saying, because it's like, who told who heard what, and this and that or whatever. Because, what's the word? Loose lips sink ships type shit. So I can see something like that probably happening, maybe to like Omar's character. Because it's like, what can he possibly do? He's sentenced to like what? I think 15 years in prison. So he can't do anything. But a death could be waiting for him because of the information that he told Elise. But again, all of that was just interesting because you heard some shit from the top that, hey, there was a lot of people that, what was his face? Elijah, Muhammad Elijah. I forgot his name, the actual guy, but there was rumors about him that he probably did it. That probably had Malcolm X killed. But I'm telling you, man, like I said, the 60s was like a wild time. Fucking wild. But overall, this episode was great. It was great. They don't make women like Mamie Johnson anymore. I want to know what they're going to do with Pettigrew because I like how they had that interaction where he was like, oh, you're going to choose Frank's side. You're going to choose Frank's side. And he looked at Bump, and then he looked at Chance. He said, fuck you too. And I was like, he wanted to say the Bump, but he just told it to Chance. And I'm like, oh, shit. And you see freaking Frank in the back. See, I understand like in the actual story of like Bumpy Johnson, that when Mamie said that Frank was like a stooge, right? He wasn't really like that guy. He wasn't Flash Walker. He was like a stooge, right? So I'm like, I mean, the way you see it in the show, man, I don't know. Could be, right? Could be. But you never know with these types of things because it's like both peoples are dead, and you can go back in previous interviews and whatever and look up the stuff that Mamie was saying, and then you look at what Frank was talking about, and you don't know. We don't know, right? We don't know. The only person who would have said the truth on who Frank was Bumpy. Bumpy would be the only person, if he was still alive, to have said what was actually Frank. Was he as close enough to him, like, or was he just like a do boy, like a stooge, right? But again, all of that shit was like what, 60, 40? No, not 40. 60, 50 years. So never know. But overall, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I catch you all in the next one.